This is my moment. Whoa, I was born for greatness. Oh, a legend in the making, deep in my bones. Oh yeah, I know I am the champion. Whoa, come on, try and take it. Whoa, it all comes down to this and deep in my bones. Oh yeah, I know I am the champion. You know I'm out for blood. I'm feeling dangerous.
Alright, time for a bit of an F1 platter before we start gearing up for the return of the F1 season. So, what am I going to cover in this video? The illegal throttle chatter. Yeah, this Ferrari illegal. I don't know why Toto's done this, but anyway, we're going to cover the illegal throttle chatter. And Bernardo might have said something smart regarding the pressures of being Ferrari. We're also going to cover where Ricciardo might land. Verstappen's made a take that provides a decent jump off points. We'll get to that. And what avenues are there for Audi's entry on account of, well, they want their own team. So the illegal throttle chatter, what's going on here? If there is anything, I don't believe there's any type of illegality about whatever Ferrari have done with their throttle. But if there is any sort of illegality, it will be in the architecture of the throttle, right? How they've laid it out, or how it connects with the drive-by-wire system. If they have done something illegal with the throttle, I don't believe they have, simply because it would be really problematic for Ferrari if they were found to be skirting technical regulations again. That would be really problematic for Ferrari, especially coming off of 2019. But you know, it's F1. You can't really write anything off. So anything is possible. Even the AI driver assist throttle, even that's possible, but it's highly unlikely. You would have to have the FIA actually in on it, because the standard ECUs exist. So that would be that would be a bit of a doozy, that one. Are Ferrari running an illegal throttle? I doubt. Could they be running an illegal throttle? Maybe. But really, the story was put out by Toto Wolff. I don't know why he put it out. I consider it highly irresponsible. I actually want to tell Toto to behave. You seriously behave, Toto. That's a bit of a silly story. But anyway, Toto, he's just throwing smoke in the air, quite frankly. That's all he's doing. He was just throwing, considering there's been this news of a design space on the front wing being closed off. I'm not sure if that's for next season or for the remainder of this season. It would have to be for next season, because, well, teams can't just stop just go make some new front wings. They can't exactly just do that. Rowan and friends, they can't justify doing that to the teams. So this output of the front wings is being outlawed as a design space for next season. And I suppose Toto might have been throwing some smoke in the air to try and divert attention away from the front wings. Who knows? But anyway, that's the illegal throttle chatter thing. There's really nothing. There's really nothing. There's no substance to it. Yeah, there's the Paul Ricard incident for Leclerc, but I mean, it's just a driver error, really. That's all. That's what it will be called at the end of the day. So there's really no meat on the story. But anyway, Bernardo, he's made a comment about, well, the pressures of being Ferrari. And they are very unique pressures to being Ferrari, in that, well, the team is older than the sport. Well, at least then the name Formula One, right? The team, the racing team, Ferrari is older than the name Formula One. So that's a very unique pressure. So, as always, when Ferrari produce a good car, there is an expectation that, well, they have to seal the deal. It's Ferrari. How could they not seal the deal? And of course, Ferrari having been in Formula One for so many years, there's always a lot of bad years around those good years as well. So, it's funny, like, Ferrari get this whole clown narrative thrown at them, but they're actually a pretty serviceable team. I mean, there's been some really dire Ferrari teams and Ferrari cars in the past, right? Some really dire. You would sacrilegious to consider those part of the Ferrari legacy, but they're there. This team, by contrast, it's goofy, but it's not exactly clown settings. Well, Hungary was clown settings, about Hungary. That was full clown settings, but they're very goofy, the team right now. I'm not sure if that's because of Binotto's haircut or what have you, but they're a very goofy outfit. But otherwise, Binotto has probably said his first smart thing of the season, and that there are very unique pressures to being Ferrari. And there's no other team on the F1 grid like Ferrari. Yeah, McLaren have some history, but it's not Ferrari's history. And that's probably as far back as you can take it. I mean, Mercedes, they probably don't want to talk about that too loudly. Mercedes, because of course the 55 will be brought up. I shouldn't laugh, but 55 will be brought up. 1955, the 55 Le Mans disaster, and well, Mercedes can't really sweep that one under the rug. That's a legacy that they just have to live with. And so that's Mercedes on unique pressure. Ferrari, well, are those unique pressures that are on Ferrari enough to unseat them the way they have been this season? No, they frankly are not. Considering the car has been, well, demonstrably the fastest car for a good part of the season now. It was debatable to start the season, but well, even with whatever final solution Red Bull actually went with in order to tame their porpoising, which they had tamed from the start of the season. Now everyone has their porpoising tamed. It's not a topic anymore. It's not maybe it will be a topic again come Singapore, but I don't think that will be porpoising, that will be bouncing. But I've said this before already. But I digress. Right? Even with the Ferrari porpoising, there were still very strong arguments for it being the faster car. The Red Bull just looked better on the eye on account of, well, it's not porpoising. But now all the teams have been forced to arrest their cars porpoising. And well, the Ferrari is still a very strong challenger, but could just as well say it should have won a few of the Grand Prix leading up to this summer break. And there'll probably be a good argument for them, well, needing to have won Belgium. I'll probably be saying in post that they should have won Belgium. Of course, I'm expecting Mercedes to win. Am I putting a voodoo on it by saying so? I don't think so. You can either say I'm putting a voodoo on it, or I like to say I'm speaking it into existence. And well, if Mercedes do pick up the win in Spa when this season resumes, then that's the death knell to Ferrari's championship as far as I'm concerned. Unless, I don't know, Verstappen retires or something. But otherwise, all the unique pressures that are on Ferrari, they don't actually justify how current season has collapsed. They just do not. Sorry, Binotto. This is a This is a grown-up and sophisticated take from Bonotto, but this doesn't excuse what we've seen so far this season. But Bonotto says it's a learning season, so the working assumption that I'm running with is that Ferrari are winding up the season to deliver a haymaker to the championship next season. That's the understanding that I'm going with for, well, the rest of this campaign. There's no other understanding to take from what's going on and from what's being said. Anyway, interestingly enough, it's not the drivers that are crumbling, although some people would argue that with Leclerc, but it's otherwise not the drivers who are crumbling at this point of the season. I mean, Paul Ricciardo, it will probably come out that some sort of technical issue came up, some technical error, but otherwise, Ferrari at the end of the day do have a brand to protect, an image to protect, and it's better for them that the driver binned the car than for the car to have binned the driver. So I mean, heck, Bonotto might have even given Toto a nudge and say, hey Toto, throw this illegal throttle chat, like throw it into the air. I need that. My driver needs that. Throw it in the. He might have done that for all, but anyway, next topic. So where will Ricciardo land? Where is he? It's funny. Alpine are making all this noise and bluster, and they're saying they're going to take this to the High Court and all of that, but no one's taking them seriously. The internet has now moved on to talking about where Ricciardo will land because, well, to everyone's understanding, that McLaren seat has been taken. so it's very funny to me just seeing all of this play out. It's very funny. Now, where might Ricciardo land? Well, if he is to land in Formula 1, a return with Renault, Alpine, is on the cards if he is to stay. Although I don't see why Alpine wouldn't seek just a different option. I don't see why they wouldn't do so. But if he is to land somewhere, that's one option. Second option, he lands at Haas on account of, well, there are still question marks as to whether Haas are going to keep Baby Schumacher. I must say I'll be very, at this point of the season, well, I suppose it will be interesting to see how Baby Schumacher resumes the season after this after this break. Even if he comes back out of form, I would be very surprised if he gets dropped from the Haas projects at this point. Very surprised. But hey, I'm sure there are people who were as surprised as I'll be if Haas dropped Baby Schumacher as they were when they got news that, well, Ricciardo was going to lose out at McLaren. Right, I'm pretty sure there were people just as surprised as I will be if Haas actually dropped Baby Schumacher. But anyway, it's just as likely Ricciardo could land at Haas. And, well, the last option for him, I don't see Williams changing drivers. Aston Martin are locked out. Perhaps Alfa Romeo cut ties with Guan Yu Zhou if his sponsors don't provide the bank that they promised to provide. There's some news about, well, some payments being short, but anyway. So that's, well, the final option for Ricciardo if he is to stay in F1, if those teams even want him. Alright, we're all talking about, oh, where Ricciardo might land. I don't think any of these teams even want him in F1, to be frank. Fast moving world, this F1 thing. Now all these new drivers are coming in, you got these new cars. Probably better off banking on some youngin with some higher brand plasticity. You'll learn the cars faster, learn the formula faster, get quicker faster. I mean, Ricciardo, he's a talented driver, but he's no generational talent. He can't mark the start and end of a generation like that. He just can't do that. That's not his level of ability. That's just not his level of ability. Like, those drivers, those are your Alonsos, those are your Sir Lewis Hamiltons, those are your Sebastian Vettels. Those are the men who mark the start and end of a generation. Right, Ricciardo, he just exists in the space, really. Talented driver, but there's levels to these things. And if you're not a generational talent, you're probably not going to last to the whole generation. You'll be replaced by the young upstarts. Because, well, the sport's ever changing, and drivers have to be adaptable. And the more ability you had as a baseline coming into the sport, well, the more adaptable you'll be. That's just how it goes. I mean, Verstappen, Maximilian, he could probably race till he's 40, to be frank, if he stays motivated. He has question marks about whether he himself will stay motivated for that long. But if he so wants to, yeah, he could race for that long. Maybe 42, 43, 44, who knows? Right, he's got a baseline of talent to do that if he stays motivated. Ricciardo, he might be as motivated as ever, as he says. He might be the most motivated he's ever been in his career. And it's just not gonna come together. Because now the sport has perhaps passed him by. And his window of opportunity is closed. But maybe he will be satisfied with a Magnussen type of role where, well, at least I get to be on the F1 grid, because it's a very rare opportunity to be on the F1 grid. So perhaps that might be where Ricciardo has his ambitions now. And if so, well, I could see him making a home at one of these teams. At a Haas or an Alpine, or if Alpine even wants him, quite frankly, or Alfa Romeo. And I could see him making a home for himself at one of these teams. But otherwise, I mean, he probably takes a TV role in Australia, to be frank. I don't see him going IndyCar. I just don't see that happening. I'll be very surprised if he does that, but I just don't see that happening. Nor NASCAR. And I just don't see him being convinced by Formula E. But anyway. Next topic. So Verstappen had a take on what separates good and great drivers. I'm not particularly interested in his take, but I'm just going to use him as a jump-off point here. So what does separate good and great drivers? Because there's a lot of good drivers that come through F1, but you can make whole series on these guys. Almost a champion. Here it is right there. You know, copyright that shit. You can put Sir Sterling Moss in there, Montoya, Robert Kubica, Mark Webber, Rubens Barrichello. You can put a lot of drivers on that list. All of them really good drivers, fantastic drivers. Kimi Räikkönen was almost one of them. Now, I classify Kimi Räikkönen as great because he sealed the deal with getting championship. Rosberg also gets this accolade. He is great. Now, Verstappen hasn't listed all the categories. He's missed out on legendary, understandable. But what separates the good and great drivers is, well, it's a number of things, but if you can put it down to two things. One, it's consistency, because you have to have consistency over a whole championship. And two, you have to have something unique about your talent. Like, how do I explain this? This is Formula One. This is the pinnacle of motorsport. Everyone's done the same hours to get here. Everyone's done their 10,000 hours. So at that point, what is going to separate these drivers from one another? Because it's not going to be time in the car. I mean, okay, Schumacher did that, but that was a very different time. So now what is actually separating the drivers? Well, you have to have a unique element to your talent, quite frankly. All your talent just has to be complete, one with the other. And well, being a complete driver is just so rare that you know, you just can't have that as a as a standard criteria. I mean, the only two, yeah, there's two complete drivers on the grid right now. It's Sir Lewis Hamilton and, quite frankly, Fernando Alonso. People are not going to give Alonso his flowers, it's fine, I get it. But yeah, he is the other complete driver on the grid. Now, Verstappen, he might become a complete driver by the time, this is actually likely he becomes a complete driver by the time he finishes his career. George Russell is perhaps on this path too, just on account of having access to Sir Lewis Hamilton's data. But anyway, so I'm gonna use Rosberg. Right, Rosberg is one of my favorite jump-off points for what separates good and great drivers. Right, I mean, I could compare Rosberg and Montoya. Right. So Montoya, he's a highly aggressive driver, right? Highly aggressive. I wonder how he did oval racing, considering he's so aggressive. But he's a highly aggressive driver, especially in combat, right? That's where he butters his bread. He's very fast lapping the car, very consistent lapping the car. But that's not his X factor. Right, you provide him the car, and his X factor is that he can race the car against other cars. Now that's great, and that works to become talismanic. He became a talismanic figure. Right, there's all sorts of clips you can go source from back in the day of Montoya at Monaco or what have you, all sorts. Right, talismanic driver, just like Danny Rick, quite frankly. But he was never going to be great because he wasn't consistent over a whole season. Now, Nico Rosberg, he was consistent over a whole season. And his unique talent, you know, his wholly unique talent, I haven't seen this, I've not seen this duplicated by anyone. Right, not Sir Lewis Hamilton, not Maximilian Verstappen, not Charles Leclerc, not George Russell, and that is Nico Rosberg. He is the human metronome. When you put him in the cockpit of one of these cars, he is the human metronome. I've never seen a driver clock 4 laps back to back to back in race trim to back. And lap the same time to within 1,000th of a second. I've never seen that. Only Rosberg has done that. Right? So that's a wholly unique talent. That is a wholly unique talent. And, you know, the one thing that stopped Rosberg from becoming legendary is that he himself couldn't see what the limit was. Right? He could get close to the limit on his own, but he couldn't see the limit for himself. That's why it was very powerful to him to have Sir Lewis Hamilton next to him as teammate, because Sir Lewis, he explores the limit and he'll show him the limit. And now Rosberg, as human metronome, he just has to replicate that, and he can. Right? His talent is that unique. He can replicate that, and that's a talent that exists, you know, wholly separate, completely separate from the car. Right? It doesn't matter which car you put him in, he can lap it consistently to within 1,000th of a second. You know, what a unique weapon to be going up against if you're a Michael Schumacher in a second career, or you're a Sir Lewis Hamilton going up against, well, an old friend or foe, who knows. But what a unique weapon to have in your arsenal as a driver. Right? There's a wholly unique talent. Montoya, he can be aggressive, but, well, there's a lot of drivers who are aggressive. Yes, Montoya is a little unique with it, but it's not that unique, quite frankly. It is not that unique in the sport. So Lewis Hamilton came in that aggressive. Maximilian Verstappen, well, Well, he might be a bit more aggressive. But even Kimi Räikkönen came in with that sort of aggression behind the wheel. Especially in, well, close combat. So this wasn't anything unique that Montoya was doing, as compared to Nico Rosberg, the human metronome. And this is what separates good and great drivers. This is it right here. You gotta have a unique talent that, quite frankly, serves you regardless of whichever car you're in. Add some more context to that. And you have to be consistent. A Formula One season is a long thing. It's a grueling thing. Very grueling. Traveling all over the world. Fuck jet lag. Fuck a jet lag, right? Traveling all over the world here. Quite literally. And you know, some men, I travel, I get all types of fucking ailments when I travel. These guys doing it as a job. Fuck your ailments, get on with it. Right, there's a different type of consistency that's demanded out of drivers to, well, peak and win a championship. A whole different set of demands. Kimi Räikkönen, right, he separated himself from the good drivers and he became a great driver on account of he's functionally a complete natural at this point. And it's, you know, the levels of F1 are so ridiculous, right? I'm probably gonna make a video on this one day, but the levels of F1 are so ridiculous that Kimi Räikkönen almost didn't get championship. Look at the talent. You can go find a compilation of Räikkönen fans getting a bit overzealous, saying he's a 700 IQ driver with the compilation. Look, he's a brilliant driver, but he almost didn't get championship because these are the type of levels that are in F1. And he had opportunities, but, well, Kimi being Kimi, you can't really rally a team behind him like that. So some corners might have been cut, some technicians might have slacked, and, well, things came up short for him. You can't really rally a team behind him like that, like a Sir Lewis Hamilton or a Maximilian Verstappen, or quite frankly Sebastian Vettel. You can't really do that. Kimi was lucky when he landed at Ferrari that they were coming off of Michael Schumacher and his excellence as far as leadership goes. They were quite fortunate in that. Kimi was quite fortunate in that regard, because otherwise I don't think Ferrari would have actually been ready to deliver him a championship. But otherwise, last point of the video, some avenues for Audi's entry. I'll have a look at the 2026 PU regulations another time. Right, I'll have a look at those another time. I've had a look at them. I have to let them marinate for a bit, stew for a bit. But otherwise, yeah, I've got some question marks, but yeah, it's neither here nor there. So, what are the avenues for Audi's entry on account of they want a new team? Well, there's the McLaren option, but McLaren would one, be a very expensive option, and two, McLaren would insist on remaining McLaren. So Audi would, quite frankly, be an engine supplier. And that's not the deal they're looking for. Now, will they be able to convince McLaren? I doubt. I don't see it. McLaren have their own ambitions, and they're happy to be someone's factory outfit, but the factory outfit must be McLaren, provided by a specific engine, as opposed to McLaren becoming a manufacturer themselves. Well, I suppose they are a manufacturer. Anyway, so McLaren, they've got some very peak demands if they're to do Audi's deal, in terms of selling their soul and becoming Audi. I'm not saying that Alpha or Aston or whoever would be selling the souls, that McLaren actually have a soul, right? It's a different context here. McLaren actually have their own soul in this Formula One game. They've got their own history, their own culture, their own context, right? And they would have to, well, sell that if they do this Audi deal, most likely. And that's a deal that they frankly can't make. So what's the next option for Audi? Because McLaren would cost, I don't know, 2 billion for Audi or something. So what's the next deal? Well, there's Aston Martin, Lawrence Stroll, no, Daddy Stroll. Daddy Stroll, he might be becoming a bit jaded with this Formula One thing, and well, not seeing the results that he thought he would see. And he's probably a bit peeved that it's not as easy as he thought it would be. You know, you throw money at it, and boom, you've got the car. It doesn't work like that. But yeah, my train of thought is that Daddy Stroll, he's tired of the Formula One thing, and he's looking to get out of this the Tracing Martin deal. He's looking to get out of it. It's bleeding him money now, and he's tired of it. Even with the budget caps, it's still bleeding him money. And so Daddy Stroll might be looking at Audi as well, a way out of Formula One. Or perhaps I am selling him short, and Daddy Stroll has some serious ambition with this Formula One thing, and he's gonna still be a part of the whole F1, well, the whole part of the F1 apparatus with Audi as a partner. Who knows? But I don't see that actually being the case. Could be, but I don't see it. I'm just covering my bases by mentioning it. But could Daddy Stroll sell this F1 team? And well, he'll let whatever happens with Lance Stroll be whatever happens with Lance Stroll. Well, yeah, he could. I think it would be good business for him to sell to Audi. Well, I think it would be good business. Depends on what valuation Audi actually give the team. Likewise, on what valuation Daddy Stroll gives the team. And he might be wishing he was in Vijay Mallya's position when Vijay sold the team, because at least they had a good design team. Now, well, now it's anyone's guess what they have. Now it's anyone's guess. But anyway, could Audi buy Aston? Yeah, probably. It's probably the most likely deal that I can see. This Aston Martin deal and the Andretti deal. But anyway, we're not going to talk Andretti just yet. That's the last one. Before Andretti, Alfa Romeo. Now, Alfa Romeo are a Sauber team. All right, Peter Sauber, he still shows up in the paddock, so they're actually the Sauber team. And yeah, Audi would be speaking with Peter Sauber as to whether they get this team or not. At least that is my understanding. Or at least that is what I'm to understand from how this Audi situation is being reported. Now, as far as I recall, Alfa Romeo entered the grid functionally as a B team to Ferrari, so that they could trial their drivers there, or their young drivers at least now. Now, Bianchi, of course, passed. Rest in peace. And Leclerc, he got through, well, his time in Alfa Romeo was incredibly short because he was just too good to stay there. So, well, Alfa Romeo are not really servicing any Ferrari young drivers right now. They haven't put baby Schumacher there. I suppose because Alfa Romeo had other options in store, and it wasn't worthwhile to them to get well, I'm supposing they got a discount on engines from Ferrari, but it wasn't worthwhile to them to do the discount on engines to get baby Schumacher into the car, and they probably didn't rate baby Schumacher that highly. But all that aside, Alfa are not exactly servicing any Ferrari young driver right now, so Fiat might be looking to get out of this Alpha deal. They might be looking to do that, just on account of it being superfluous, and well, there's easier ways to get young drivers into seats than, well, having a major stake in the team, right? Anyway, so my thinking here is that Fiat want out of this this Alfa Romeo deal, and well, Audi presents them an opportunity to sell the team, then just be done with the asset. Now, is this one that I see happening? No, not really. I'm not entirely sure what the contract is worth to Peter Sauber, but aside from that, there are probably outfits that provide more better located facilities than Alfa Romeo provide, with their wind tunnel and HQ being in Switzerland. And Switzerland, I don't even believe have a racetrack, so yeah, that would be a logistical question mark that, well, Audi would be reluctant to have pried open. Well, your facilities are located in Geneva, and you're testing the cars in, you know, in Spain and Britain, and you're running shakedowns in Silverstone. Doesn't all this freight scupper your whole low emissions, low carbon footprint messaging and all of that? But anyway, of course, Audi, I don't see them wanting to touch anything relating to that. If I'm thinking of it, then they're geniuses at marketing and on their philosophical side of the business. They'll be all over this. So I don't see them doing an Alpha deal, despite Alpha probably being the easiest deal to complete. And then there's the Andretti deal, and well, on the Andretti deal, the rest of the F1 grid don't want Andretti to join because, well, there's too many questions that have to be answered in regards to, okay, how do you share prize money now? How are the new budget caps allocated? Because these things are calculated for 10 teams. You have to answer this question before you get all the teams to sign off on bringing in the new team. And until the FIA, Braun and friends actually do this, I don't see how Andretti actually get a foothold into F1. Right, and it's weird, you know, the entry process for F1 is a whole mess, I tell you. Outfits have to put down $200 million, I believe. Might be British pounds, which would be a whole different. Anyway, I believe they have to put down 200 million. It's either euro or dollars for a season before they're even in the sport. You know, for anyone who doesn't know. So Andretti have done this, right? Andretti have capital, of course. So they put down 200 mil. That kind of displays to Formula One that, okay, you do actually have enough liquid capital to run a functional F1, not a competitor, just a functional, right? But to run a functional F1 program. So, okay, you can stump 200 milli a year. So, welcome on board. That's how it worked back in the day before, well, budget caps came in and the prize money was so considered and all of that. That's how it worked back in the day. Nowadays, well, prize money has to be recalculated for an 11th team. Budget cap allocations have to be recalculated. All of these things have to be done, and I don't really see the FIA moving on it, and I don't see Andretti having enough clout to get the FIA to move on it. But the FIA would move on it if Andretti was suddenly to be partnered by Audi, because Audi is a brand that, well, F1 wants around. Quite frankly, they want VW, you know. If they could land VW, I mean, that would be the magnum opus moment of F1, right? But But they got one of VW's brands too, with Porsche. Who knows where Porsche go? Just as likely Porsche go to Alfa Romeo. Anyway, so on account of Formula One really wanting Audi on the grid, right? They've changed the whole PU regulations for this shit to get Porsche and Audi now VW brands on this shit. So on account of that, if Audi were to partner with Andretti, is it Andretti Autosport or Andretti Motorsport? I don't know and I don't care, I'm going with Autosport. But if they were to partner with Andretti Autosport, Audi Andretti Autosport, it's AAA, but if they were to partner with them, and suddenly Audi are coming, now that 11th entry is recontextualized, right? It's no longer garagistas coming in, it's Audi, it's the manufacturer. It's the men who were dominating Le Mans for a decade. Comfortably. Against real competitors, mind you. Anyway. But it'll be them that are coming in. That's a different, it's them. It's not those guys, it's them. Audi is like the him of motors. Oh my God, it's him. He's here. Maybe someone's villain, or the main villain stepped into the room. Audi, here they come. And this is the thing. If Audi partner with Andretti, well, forget about whatever the teams might complain about with, oh, what are you going to do about our prize money? Their FIA will sign off on that shit and deal with it later. They'll deal with it later, I promise you. Even if they have to start the season without prize money being decided, and they got to decide it in the middle of the season, okay, this is how we're gonna distribute the prize money. They'll run that shit. They'll run that. If Audi has to be the 11th team, and they have to break some bread with the devil over the course of that season, it'll happen. It'll happen. And quite frankly, I put nothing off. This thing could be delayed, discussing a new Concord agreement or what have you. That could be delayed for yonks. Alright, that could be delayed for years. For years. They should be discussing it right now, but fuck that. They're probably not doing so. They're probably not doing so. They're probably just getting spicy takes from all the team principals saying, no, there's no room for an 11th team on the F1 grid. Well, Andretti have demonstrated that they have capital, and those spicy takes are gonna simmer right the fuck down if Andretti end up paired up with Audi. Alright, that's just gonna simmer right there. All that chatter about, oh well, the FIA are gonna have to answer all these questions, all that chatter gonna simmer the fuck down, and they'll actually get to they'll actually lock the room and discuss this shit, and who knows, 24-hour meeting. Anyway, alright, these are avenues for Audi's entry: Andretti, Alfa, Aston, McLaren, as far as I see it. So yeah, that's the vid. Peace.
Hell breezy. Let me show you how to keep the dice rolling when you're doing that thing over there. Hey. Let's go! Cause I'm feeling like I'm running and I'm feeling like I gotta get away. Better know that I don't and I won't ever stop, cause you know I gotta win every day. Go! See, you really wanna pop me. Go! Just know that you will never flop me. And I know that I gotta be a little cocky. Go! You ain't never gonna stop me. Every time I come a nigga gotta set it, then I gotta go, and then I gotta get it, then I gotta blow, and then I gotta shut it. Any little thing a nigga think that he be doing, cause it doesn't matter, cause I'm gonna dead it. Then I'm gonna murder everything and anything about it. Boom, about a bing. I gotta do a lot of things to make it clearer to a couple niggas that I always win, and then I gotta get it again and again and again. And I be doing it to death, and now I move a little foul. Nigga better call a rap, and everybody know my style. Niggas know that I'm the best when it comes to doing this, and I be banging on my chest, and I bang in the east, and I banging in the west, and I come to give you more, and I will never give you less. You will hear it in the street, or you can read it in the press. Do you really wanna know what's next? Let's go. See the way we on it, and we all up in the race, and you know we gotta go, not try to keep up with the pace, and we struggling and hustling and set it in again.